That is the nature of law.
Why can you not be forced to give me an organ?
Because I do not owe you a duty of care sufficient to remove an organ from me.
Because you cannot be forced to use your body to sustain my own. And that is the crux of
because
the
I do not owe you a
argument.
duty to
Because
care.
you cannot be forced to use your body to sustain my own. And that is the crux of the abortion argument. And the problem is, and it's very morally
You're ignoring the
inconsistent.
parental relationship.
Because there's a point here. There's a very morally inconsistent part to your argument right here. If you do not believe that you should be forced to sustain my body using your own, then you should also not believe that a woman should be forced to sustain a child that they do not want to carry in utero.
Well, listen, I appreciate him recognizing that, in fact, it is your child. It is an unborn child that a mother is pregnant with. Kudos to him. But, you know, I've said before, I will say again, pregnancy is not comparable to organ donation. Abortion restrictions or abortion bans are not comparable to forced organ donation. And I'll get into the reasons why. They're very clear. But I do want to make a point that pregnancy is really an incomparable situation. There is no other situation on the planet in which a human, genetically distinct human life requires another human body, needs to exist inside another human body through no culpability, no fault of his own for a certain amount of time, 9 months. That's not comparable to a trespasser on your property, a burglar, organ donation. We should stop trying to shoehorn and force these comparisons. But here are the reasons why pregnancy is in fact not comparable to organ donation. Abortion bans or restrictions are in fact not comparable to forced organ donation. Number one, organ donation, while it is a miracle of modern medicine, it is not natural. The natural place for your kidney, your bone marrow, your heart, your lungs is in your body. They were made for you. Now, I'm not knocking organ transplants at all. I'm simply saying that it is not natural, but pregnancy is natural. Guess where the most natural place in the world for a human fetus is? Inside his mother's uterus. That's the most natural place in the world for a human fetus. So we're talking about pregnancy, natural, organ donation, not natural, right? Number two, presumably I am not responsible for you needing another kidney, a liver transplant, etc. I didn't cause that, right? But barring assault, I am responsible for the existence of this tiny human inside me. And the same would go for a man. Although men cannot become pregnant, he is responsible for the existence of this tiny human inside of another woman. If in fact he's the one that copulated with her and donated his genes, he's responsible, she's responsible, again, barring assault. There's culpability there that isn't there for someone else, even a family member needing an organ transplant or a donation of some kind, right? Third, there is an ethical, there is a moral, an undeniable ethical moral difference between passively allowing someone to potentially die, allowing someone to maybe die, is different than actively and assuredly ending his life, right? I can say no to giving someone an organ that he might need, and if he cannot find it elsewhere, he may in fact die, right? I passively, possibly allowed him to die, but he might find it elsewhere. He might not die, right? I can say no to donating you an organ, but I can't go in and shoot you, right? I can't go in and intentionally end your life. That's not a right of mine, but I can say no. I'm not going to donate an organ, but I can't intentionally end your life. Abortion is the intentional, assured, absolute, active destruction of a human life. There's nothing passive about it, nothing accidental. He can't go somewhere else and get that organ or stay alive. It is intentional, it's active, it's assured. You are actively killing another human being, a genetically distinct human. Ethically, there's a difference there between just saying, no, actually, I'm not going to give you an organ. Ethically, there's a difference. And finally, parents do have a moral obligation to their own children. Parents have a moral obligation to their own children that they don't have to anyone else, including other family members, including other children in the world. Parents have a moral obligation. Now, no, we don't go in and say you have to donate your child bone marrow or something like that, but 99% of parents would. But we do go in and say, actually, yes, you must provide housing for your child, food for your child, education, so on and so forth. The government, because it is the morally correct and just thing to do, the government mandates that you labor to provide food and shelter, etc. for your child. That is a must, and we all recognize that parents have a unique responsibility to their own offspring that is unlike any other situation, unlike any other relationship in the world. And I would argue, I assume Ben Shapiro would agree, that that parental obligation begins from the moment of fertilization. From the moment that you get the positive pregnancy test, your obligation as a mother or as a father begins in that moment. It doesn't start at birth, because birth is not when you become human. It's not when you become alive. It starts the moment that pregnancy test comes back positive. You should not be able to shirk your responsibility while the child is in utero, any more than you should be able to shirk your parental responsibility while the child is ex utero, right? That's illegal. That's immoral. We all recognize that. I would argue it should be illegal and immoral while the child is in utero. And in fact, when a father shirks his parental duty, his paternal duty, we call him a deadbeat dad, and justifiably so. But when a mother shirks her parental duty to the point of fatality via abortion, we call that her right. In fact, it is not her right. It is shirking parental responsibility. And if she were to do that while the child was ex utero, even though the child's alive in utero, if she were to do that while the child was ex utero, she would be charged, she would be arrested, she would be imprisoned, because in fact, we recognize that it is illegal. It is immoral to neglect your child, especially to the point of death. No, pregnancy is not comparable to organ donation. Abortion bans, abortion restrictions are not comparable to the government forcing you to give parts of your body, to give organs to another individual. I'm sorry.